Shalom, everybody. Welcome back to BreslovCampus. Insights in the parsha of the week, Parshat Ki Tisa, which is such a rich parsha. I may say this not every week, but this week's parsha really hits it to be one of the big parshas of the entire Torah. So packed with so many details and everything. We'll try to go into whatever we can, God willing. In Rebbe Nachman's teachings, you will find that he gives a lot of emphasis on the idea of the hands. The hands are a means for real energy, for the positive development, or God forbid also for the opposite. He teaches in several places of the idea of clapping hands, using your hands to connect to God through singing and davening, and having the hands being a part of that. Okay? He goes into a lot about the power of the hands. In this week's parsha, we see this reflected in the whole incident of the making of the golden calf, and also the breaking of the 2 tablets of the 10 statements, the 10 commandments that Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Har Sinai, and then he broke them with his hands. First, it talks about Aaron collecting the gold from the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude who came to try to get the Jewish people to fall to do the idol of the golden calf. So the Zohar says like this, that the whole reason why this evil deed succeeded in becoming from potential to actual, that the actual was made a golden calf, is because, this is what the Zohar says, Aharon received the gold directly from the hands of the Erev Rav, of the mixed multitude, and he took from their hand, and then that's the energy from their hand transferred into Aharon's hands, is what led to the success of the golden calf from actually happening. But the Zohar says, if the Aharon would have, after receiving the gold from the mixed multitude, have thrown the gold on the floor, on the earth, and then pick it up, so that would have broken the influence and the impact of the evil desire in the hands of those who gave and donated the gold, to be in the gold still, and it would have never worked out. And this is where Rebbe Nachman teaches, so much is dependent on your hands. Your hands, number one being, this is the world of action, asiyah, right? Rebbe Nachman also teaches that the hands are the person's measurement of his faith and his level of prayer. Like it says, at the time that the Jewish people were fighting Amalek, and Moshe Rabbeinu was standing on a high cliff davening for the success of the Jewish people. So it says there, Vahi yadav emunah, and Moshe's hands were faithful. That means that they were steady in prayer. That's the simple meaning. Onkelos translates spread out in prayer. Moshe's hands spread out in prayer. Prisan bitzlo. Sorry, his hands were faithful. He translates it as spread out in prayer. Prayer, hands, faith are all one idea. And this is what the Zohar is saying, that the energy of the hands of the mixed multitude was in the gold, and that energy is what led it to succeed. If Aaron would have broken that contact and that connection by throwing it on the earth, and the earth is a way to like ground, like also, in physics and everything, we want to ground an item, you have to connect it to the earth. So too spiritually, by throwing something on the earth, it starts from zero, scratch again, and then when picked up, this way they would have no negative influence of the hands of the mixed multitude in the gold. And then afterwards, Moshe Rabbeinu, when he saw that it did succeed, he had no other alternative but to throw from his hands, because he received from his 2 hands also the 10 tablets, the two tablets, the 10 commandments. He had to throw it from his hands in order to break the influence of the golden calf, that it shouldn't influence the 10 commandments in the hands of Moshe Rabbeinu. Because now that there's a antithesis of the Torah, of the 10 commandments, this golden calf, so it can't coexist with the 10 commandments, which is the culmination of the entire Torah. So Moshe Rabbeinu had no choice but to throw it from his hands on the earth, which if Aaron would have done that, then it would have spared Moshe from having to throw the 2 tablets from his hands. But because he didn't throw the gold onto the floor. Moshe Rabbeinu had no alternative but to throw the 2 tablets from his hands to the earth, bringing it back to 0.0, starting fresh. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu was able to activate by God, the forgiveness for the Jewish people, to start again, to let them enter the Holy Land, and not to be annihilated like Hashem originally planned to do after the incident of the golden calf. All this comes to remind us that a Jew has to wash their hands. The hands of a Jew play a major role in his Judaism. For example, we wake up in the morning, the very first thing we do, first thing we say is Modeh Ani, but the very first thing you do is you wash your hands, right? And before entering any food in your mouth, you wash your hands. Before praying, you make sure your hands are clean. Once, Rav Nosson was invited to eat in the middle of eating one meal. He was invited to go to another place. So the halacha requires like this, that when a person starts eating bread in point A in one location, so he washes his hands to eat there. If you know in the middle of the meal you're going to continue the meal somewhere else, so when washing your hands initially for the food, in the first place, if you have in mind that you're going to continue eating the bread in location number 2, so it suffices for both places. And according to halacha, according to law, you don't have to wash your hands a second time when you get to point B in the middle of the meal to finish the meal. You started in one location, and then you're going to finish eating bread in another location, and you're going to bench doing the Birkat Hamazon at the second location. Rav Nosson, nevertheless, would still, when this would happen in his life, he would wash his hands a second time before eating the bread, of course without a blessing. And even though he wasn't halachically required, he would explain why he did that. He says because a Jew, before eating, always washes the hands. By the Gentile world, they go straight to the table. But a Jew always works on sanctifying the hands. This is something very important. Even Rebbe Nachman in his book, the Aleph Bet book, he says that a Jew is very accustomed to washing his hands a lot. That is very perpetuous. Mesugal le taharat halev. It brings to purity of the heart. We should learn from this week's parsha to guard our hands in holiness.